Thanks for joining the Bitcoin sandwich here again at noon. And we're excited to get into some nitty gritty stuff with the gold standard today. This is not financial advice. We're just here having a good time talking about the history of money and currency, and looking forward to today's discussion, around the gold standard and what that entailed. Really, the gold standard was this concept that we built our money, our currency off of, and it had all the properties that are extremely valuable. It's scarce and it satisfies all the properties of scalability, space, time. And it really, up until now, was the most scarce commodity in the world. Now that thing is Bitcoin.
Well, you're right. I mean, for thousands of years, gold is what everybody used. I mean, the reason gold was so perfect is one, like as you said, it satisfied all those needs, right? Again, as we said 100 times now, it's durable, it's fungible, it's divisible, so on and so forth. But the other thing that it's also retained value, which as we established, is very important. But the other thing too, it was the hardest money that was around. There's a way to measure the hardness of money, so to speak, and that's the stock to flow ratio. For those who don't know, stock to flow ratio is essentially the current supply of a commodity divided by the future creation of it. So for example, gold, I think stock to flow ratio is something like 69, right?
Hmm.
Gold historically, since well forever, it takes a lot of resources to mine, only goes up, I think, was it 2% a year or something like that.
So there's a limited number, or I guess there's a limited supply that is could possibly happen in terms of a time frame. I guess, is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a limited amount. I mean, well, we don't know how much gold there is, right? Like the interesting thing is they always are discussing like with gold that they might be able to utilize science to change the molecular structures of I can't remember what
And
molecule, but to
create
essentially
more or
create more
something.
gold. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't
yeah,
remember. I don't remember
yeah,
science very well.
yeah.
But then they also talk about mining asteroids and things like that, right? And so like that's the thing is that we don't know how much gold there is. I mean, there could be infinite amount of gold out in the universe. It's just can we get the resources to?
I think I even saw, I don't know if it had to be like a month or so ago. I saw that they found some more in like Africa, I want to say, some more gold.
Well, it's China, so that's the
Or
thing. So China found, at least what we read is that China found a massive gold reserve.
okay.
And then if I remember correctly, so did El Salvador, something like trillions of dollars in gold reserve that they're going to try and mine, right? And so even the gold, which is the scarcest, hardest money that we've ever had, is, well, I mean, unlimited, really. I mean, we don't know how much there actually is. But actually, I was going to say there's a fun fact. I don't know if it's really a fun fact, but I think it's kind of fun. Wood trees are actually more scarce than everything else that we know of in the universe, at least more or
Wow.
less. I mean, think about, so I mean, obviously there's planets,
Yeah.
trillions or however many miles away with maybe trees or something like that, but actually wood is actually more scarce than gold and all this other stuff.
That
Except
is
Bitcoin.
that's the other thing with Bitcoin. I don't think a lot of people truly understand that Bitcoin is the only finite thing. There's only 21 million of them.
Well, it's a beauty, yeah, 100%. And so that's the thing. You talk about stock to flow ratio with gold being 69. Right now, Bitcoin today is 120. The last Bitcoin that will ever be mined is 2140. And when we hit that last point, the stock to flow ratio is infinite. Like basically it's the most absolute finite scarce asset ever created in well history. Well, but then it also the beautiful thing is it fulfills all of those properties that we talked about multiple times now, where it's saleable across scales, time, and space. It's divisible by infinity, right? We say there's only 21 million that can ever exist. The thing is Bitcoin can be divided well, infinitely. It can fulfill every need in our current system. So it's we're talking about hardness of money. It's very hard.
The other thing I that came up to me when we were talking, I don't think a lot of people understand. You can buy 0.000001 Bitcoin or even
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
further decimals. People, they think I gotta buy a Bitcoin for 100,000 some dollars. I'm not gonna do that. But
Well, it's just, yeah, you're right. I mean, the thing is I hope the goal of this is that we can educate people on this stuff because you're right.
yeah,
I try really hard not to say, blame like an individual for anything. Obviously we got to take some self responsibility, but the thing is, it's all about education, and most people just they aren't familiar with this stuff. And I think hopefully our goal is to be able to educate people on a lot of these concepts. What you were saying though is that how many $100 bills do you walk around with? I don't have any dollars on me, right? But I definitely don't have $100 bills, right? I have the derivatives of a $100 bill. I have tens and ones and or whatever, so on and so forth. People need to stop getting hung up on one Bitcoin.
Yeah, so like, we were talking about just gold and how it was the standard for so long and created economic stability, and really that was up until the early 1900s. Used for thousands of years, and it satisfied all those needs, like we said. And then every unit of currency was really directly convertible to the fixed amount of gold. And we're not talking just the U.S. dollar; we're talking currencies across the world. But with U.S. gold standard in general, that was about 1 ounce to roughly $21 of gold. And inflation was minimal and purchasing power was stable. And then, purchasing power was key for everything, essentially.
100%. I'm glad you brought that point up again with purchasing power. I think that of all the concepts that we'll discuss, that's up there with understanding the importance of money is purchasing power. You hear people say all the time, I want to be a millionaire. What does being a millionaire represent?
It's a status to be a millionaire, essentially.
Yeah, you achieve $1 million, but essentially you're achieving, well, the ability to purchase whatever you want, your ability to own time, the ability to do all those things. It's like everyone wants to be a millionaire because of the status. But think
Yes.
about this. I always say this. If you want to be a millionaire, take all of your dollars today, take all your Bitcoin, take everything, convert it to like pesos or something like that. You're going to be a multi-billionaire, but you're not going to be able to buy anything. And with gold, when you had the gold standard, so I think your annual salary of gold was like 158 ounces in 1920, and you could purchase a house, you could purchase cars, you could purchase everything. You basically traded your time for gold, and you were able to maintain a good lifestyle. Go to today, and well, 2025, $1 million barely buys you a house. Like you live in Austin, Texas.
Some of the homes here, like you could get like a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet for like $700,000.
That's close to 100,000. That's crazy.
Crazy.
You go to Colorado. I'm not in Colorado, and I think the average median household or house in Iowa is something like $500,000. So like you want to be a millionaire? Well, I promise you, it doesn't mean not gonna be a 10 millionaire or something like that. So again, like it's all about purchasing power, right? And if you have this currency, dollars, that no longer maintains purchasing power, well, I mean, your standard of living is gonna go significantly down. And so,
Yeah.
you talk about there's all this economic instability going on and things like that. And there's always been economic instability, but as you prefaced earlier about early 1900s, was it the Gold Standard Act or whatever? It was, creating economic stability. Well, then 1913 hits, they create the Federal Reserve, and then, well, now guess what? Now they can print unlimited amounts of money, and this leads into, say, well, World War One, which led into the Great Depression, and then World War Two, and so
So essentially, we had to go off the gold standard at some point, right?
more or less. And then obviously, here's the thing with gold or Bitcoin or any finite amount of money. It puts a regulator, for lack of a better word, on the government. Like they have to be more fiscally responsible, right? Because think about it this way. If you only have, say, a million pounds of gold, that's all you have, that's all the economy has, right? Well, you're going to think twice about like, am I going to go to war? Am I going to spend my money on this or that or so on and so forth? It used to be back in the olden days, I'd say Napoleon, for example. If you went to war, the war ended in two ways. You either won the war or the other side won the war and killed all your people or vice versa. Or one of the sides ran out of money and couldn't fund the war anymore, in which case the war ended. Well, now you have wars that last 10 years, 20 years, whatever, because they can endlessly print dollars to fund wars. And so when you talk about economic stability, being on a fixed money system is, I think, crucial to allow for, a better standard of living, making sure that the dollars are going or the money's going to places that are going to help people thrive and the economy thrive and so on and so forth, rather than lining the pockets of the elites and so on and so forth.
It's interesting to think about. I
It's
know,
an
I
interesting
know.
thing, you know?
Yeah, we'll get to more of that. I have so many questions or like things that I'm curious about from that perspective.
It's just so
But
fascinating. I mean, history is so fascinating. I think, again,
yeah,
this is the thing, is we're talking about history right now, and I know everyone's like, oh, this is a Bitcoin podcast. Like I said in the first episode, this is not a Bitcoin podcast. This is a let's learn how to think differently podcast. Because it's important to start questioning stuff, as
at the end of the day, we got curious, right? And then once you get curious, you start to learn, and then you start to understand. That makes sense. Wait, wait, wait. Okay, now I know that. Now that makes sense. Now this, and
Well, they're not
now then
gonna
you start putting things together.
100%. Well, who was Rockefeller? I'm pretty sure it was something like along the lines like, "I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers," or something, and it's kind of how it is. Like they don't teach you this stuff in school. Here's the thing. So this is another interesting thing I heard the other day. They actually someone wrote, "No one has a original thought. A lot of what we say comes from." The media, the books, the whatever we read and we regurgitate or something like that. It's kind of profound because it's kind of like, everyone kind of only gets their information from one thing. Doesn't matter if it's MSNBC or if it's Twitter or it's whatever. I think, like I said, I try to say is it's important to go back to first principles, like trying to go back to the basics. But then the other important thing is learning how to aggregate data and get your perspective from multiple points. Like, don't just look at this one point and then regurgitate everything they say, because I promise you it's probably not true. And even if it is true, there's probably some underlying agenda. It's important to take points from multiple aspects
Yeah,
and then aggregate that data and try and find the truth. You may not even find the truth, but you'll be a lot closer, to figuring out what's real and what's not real, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, question us, question everyone.
I think that's great to aggregate data. That's a really good point. When did we go back on the gold standard?
Yeah, we did go back on the gold standard. I think if I remember correctly, like
Yeah,
around 1933, went back on the gold standard. That's also when they initiated the 6102 attack with
that's
gold and
right.
Hoover. Yeah, basically they seized everyone's gold and said if you're caught with gold, we're gonna then fine you $10,000 and like 10 years imprisonment. And $10,000 back then was like the equivalent of $250,000 or something. So,
Yeah,
anyways, they stole all your gold, went on the gold standard and Bretton Woods agreement, meaning we're gonna go on the world's reserve currency is gonna be backed by dollars and the dollar is gonna be backed by gold. But then in 1971, well, actually in 1960s, France started to realize that the dollar was losing its value, and they started wanting their gold back or something along those lines. In which case,
so
Nixon in 1971 is like, "No, man, we're going off the gold standard. We're not,
yeah,
we're not going to do that because we don't want to lose all our gold and so on and so
yeah.
forth."
It's like the government handcuffing everybody and
Yeah.
taking control,
So
and that's what happens when the government has control of money.
do everything they can to keep the power. And that's the thing is like,
Yeah.
the 6102 attack. I mean, it's very possible that, Bitcoin takes off. They're going to try to do something with that. However, we'll talk about this later, but really it's important for people to understand how to self custody your Bitcoin. Like, I don't know how to
Yes.
prep this that enough. If it's not your keys, it's not your Bitcoin. That's a big saying in,
Hey,
in Bitcoin.
I still
You got
need to
to
do
self
it. I
custody.
still need to do it, my friend.
I know,
People
dude.
keep
If it's
telling
on the
me.
exchange, you don't own
Yeah.
Bitcoin yet. You just own,
Yeah.
the stock owns or the market owns your Bitcoin right now.
Well, didn't we like when we went on the go back on the gold standard in the 1930s? Like, what was going on at that time? Or I guess was it like 1970?
Well, it's 1930s is when we went on I mean, basically in post World War II to create economic stability. I believe, again, my history could be a little fuzzy, so all you history buffs out there, don't shoot me. But if I believe, or if I remember correctly, post World War II to create more economic stability, again, they went back, they created the Bretton Woods Agreement, again, which was going on, using the dollar to back the world's reserve currency, right? And then again, as the world started to realize like inflation and so on and so forth is coming. They started to want their gold back, and then again, obviously, if all the world takes their gold back, well, then the U.S. is going to lose power. And so, anyways, yeah. So we went on, went off the basically we went off the gold standard and like officially in 1971 with
Yeah.
Nixon, and here we are.
So, like, if we never went back, on the gold standard, what's backing the U.S. dollar today?
What is nothing, man? There's literally
Yeah.
nothing. No, there is the
It's
power of
trust,
the
right?
U.S. government. It's
It's
trust in
trust.
the government, and
It's trust in
well,
the
no one trusts
government.
the government. Who
So
trusts the government?
whoever created Bitcoin was super smart because they're like, government can't really control this to a certain extent.
Well, that's the whole purpose of Bitcoin is a decentralized
100%.
network. For people who want to look into it, I suggest reading the Bitcoin white papers. It's not terribly complex, but it really is simple. It's basically a peer-to-peer network, not controlled by anyone, controlled by everyone. You look at all the properties we discussed about gold, creating economic stability, and the reason being is because of its scarce properties, which as we know, isn't even the scarcest substance in the world.
Mhm.
Bitcoin being the most scarce substance in the world, us going into a more digital era and whatnot, creates an extreme amount of economic stability. And again, as we prefaced earlier about purchasing power, I mean, Bitcoin, everything gets cheaper on a Bitcoin standard. Everything. Everyone right now is struggling, probably generally in some instance, because everything's getting more expensive on a fiat standard. You
Yeah.
go to a Bitcoin standard, everything's getting a lot cheaper. To be honest, houses are getting cheaper. Everything falls to Bitcoin.
I think there's going to be some good takeaways from this. If anything, people are learning about the history of currency and money. The good thing to think about as a viewer too is like this will keep building. It'll keep building and building and building until we start to talk about Bitcoin more. But we really just want to help them understand the history of everything so that Bitcoin will actually make more sense. Thanks for checking us out today. If you saw us right when we post, or if you saw this right when it posted over lunch, hopefully you have a good rest of your day at work or whatever it is that you're doing. We look forward to putting another one out here in the next few days. Make sure that you subscribe, like, comment any questions you have or anything you want us to talk about. We love to answer those for you. Adam, you got anything else?
No, man, great chatting with you. I hope you enjoy sunny Texas, if it is in fact sunny. It's a little rainy
Hey,
here, but
hey, we got some rain today, which is good. So cool, man.
all right.
Well, enjoy
Yeah, see
Iowa.
ya.
We
Take
will
care.
talk to you guys next time.
Yeah, see ya.